Hi everybody and welcome to another Wordlift Roundtable. Today, Jason Barnard, myself, joined by David Riccitelli. Is that the correct way to say it?
That's correct. Thanks, Jason.
Brilliant. And then we're going to have Alex Silva, who will join us in a moment. And today we're talking about measuring semantic SEO results using Google Data Studio, GA and GSC, Google Analytics, and Google Search Console. Welcome, Alex. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. A little problem with my sound, but
you're sounding great now, which is absolutely the thing we needed.
my! Thank you very much. Sounds
brilliant. So I actually love this topic because it's something I don't know anything about. When we first discussed what we would be talking about, I had a really brilliant idea about multilingual semantics. And David said, no, let's look at Google Data Studio, GA and GSC. And it turns out I'm really pleased because I know nothing about it. So welcome, everybody. I'm really looking forward to actually learning something. And I'm going to be asking all the uninformed questions that probably everybody is thinking. David, love your background.
Thank you. This is our new background. And we have several shapes, and it's virtual. It's not like the physical one. I had actually until a few days ago, I had like a photo of our office in Rome, but because we are in the we're in the virtual world, we're in the entities world, in linked data world, and this world is made of shapes. And I think this background more represents the idea that we enter this digital shapy world made of smooth shapes and colors, and it's more like I'm into it now. I don't know what is this thing that keeps popping on my right side. I looked, there's nothing actually, so this is probably some presence from this virtual world that is trying to join me.
Yeah, that might be the danger of the virtual world, is that there are bugs and elements that introduce themselves without us being able to control it. It's
kind of a heart. It's pulsing.
Maybe some entity come going.
Indeed.
Welcome to everybody. Marcus, Teodora, Jeannie, Alex, say a quick hello. You're in Brazil, yeah?
Yeah, here in Brazil, a little freezing, but not for your people from Europe. But here, work a lot and learning a lot in these hours conversations. It's be a pleasure to be here.
Brilliant, wonderful. So, welcome to everybody. I'm really interested in questions because I have my own questions, but I don't think necessarily that what I have to ask is what everybody else would want to ask, especially as I have no idea how Google Data Studio works to start with. And David, you were saying to me it's actually much simpler than I think.
No, I don't think so.
I share your feeling. I don't know how many people can actually say that they really know Data Studio, because it's not only complex. I was thinking when I use it, it's like it reminds me of like when I talk with my little daughters. And, one of the two is actually not even 2 years old, and I cannot really understand what she's saying. I only know that she wants to be right all the time. And this is my relationship with Data Studio. Like I insist in trying to explain what kind of report I want. And no, it's telling me I want it this way. And okay, I give up at some point. But yeah, I mean, if you really care about it, if you take Data Studio in your family, if you hug it, and then after a while, after investing some time, you can actually create some quite some interesting reports, and then you can actually make sense of the data that is coming from different sources.
Let me say one thing. Working with David in the Data Studio, we will show, and you see how the people with knowledge and understanding of the tool, how they create a great Data Studio dashboards.
Actually, Alex, I have a surprise for you afterwards, because I really improved the work that we did.
Oh,
both in style, in look and feel, but also in the graphs that I made. I invested more time with it. As I said, yeah, it's like really like father-child relationship now.
Oh my!
So you will like
Brilliant.
it, I hope.
Right. So David has explicitly said that Google Data Studio is his third child. And you need to care for Google Data Studio. You need to engage with Google Data and get the relationship going with it, because maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe I just didn't engage enough.
Exactly. I think you need to be very patient. I mean, there are some nuances with the UI. Generally speaking, it's like a little bit complicated when you try to move elements around and give the styling and stuff, or when you try to change something. Also, it has always to reload the data, so it takes some time. So it takes some patience. And then if you have patience and slowly start to build these graphs, and then you see the data popping out in the forms of visuals, and then you feel all of a sudden that you're like, oh my goodness. So now I made something, this small seed actually is growing into a full tree, a plant, and then it gives you pleasure, it gives you satisfaction, and then you want to do more and do a little bit more refinements and so forth.
Right, so we can switch to the analogy of a gardener rather than a parent, and talk about getting this plant to grow and to display with glorious color and 3D dimensions the insights into your data. I mean, Alex, I know you know quite a lot about it, much more than I do. And part of this entire presentation is going to be about how you've been using it, practically speaking.
Yeah, exactly. I use Wordlift and Semantic Seo in a bunch of projects, and I showed to you a little presentation about Semantic Seo applying in the SEO, and some results that I achieved with Wordlift. So Wordlift is a very good tool to work with SEO and semantic SEO especially. And we have a gap to understand the results of entities and Google and Bing. So David make this beautiful job to fill this gap.
Yeah, no, which is a really, really brilliant introduction. I mean, we're all focused on keywords. That's where SEO traditionally comes from. I started in 1998. It was all about keywords and variants of keywords, incredibly simplistic. And today we're looking at entities, and providing and showing the value of the entities is incredibly difficult. And I think that's what you guys at Wordlift are doing, David. So would you like to start off by explaining semantic SEO, how we apply it, and how we can start to show people that, or the stakeholders rather, that the semantics has value above and beyond the keywords themselves?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
It's for me.
David.
Okay. I didn't know. I mean, of course, the best people to actually explain these are the actual people that are using it. So Alex will for sure do a better work than I will do, but a better job. But I will try just to. I usually cite two people. Before it was just one person. It was Tim Berners-Lee, who's the father of the web. I mean, we have our jobs thanks to Tim Berners-Lee. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have got a job in an open field and breathe fresh air. But Tim Berners-Lee actually said, I think it's more than 15 years now, that we did not understand anything about the web, that we were using it the wrong way, that we made too many pages with too many words, that he meant the web as a mean to connect data. Because if you connect data, you can create an actual value. So he's been actually working a lot and going around to explain people that they need to publish their data on the web. Now, this is one interesting point. Of course, Tim Berners-Lee, maybe people will not relate to him directly because maybe it's not business oriented in that way. But if we take also what Amit Singhal said, the senior vice president of Google in the last decade, he said that actually also Google is radically changing. It started to change many years ago radically the way that it crawls the web. So it's not using, I mean, still using keywords. Keywords are still relevant, of course, but Google is actually, as we know, trying to understand the meaning of what it crawls on the web, because there are so many web pages, there's so much in the web that using only words would not be enough. And Amit Singhal said, I think almost 5 years ago, or a little bit more than that, he said, things, not strings. So this is our lighthouse. This is where we need to go. And as Wordlift, we started almost 10 years ago under the research and development umbrella to try to understand how we could shape the web and the content management system in order to create actual entities, concepts, so that people could actually transpose their ideas into the web. And luckily, this effort matched what the SEO world was doing, like the establishment of the schema.org vocabulary, the definition of the JSON LD format before it was microdata. So all the market was going in that direction, and this is when basically we came to the market with Wordlift, and we created a platform that hosts a knowledge graph for your website concepts. And we connected this knowledge graph with different CMS. Of course, we look at the most used CMS out there, which is WordPress. So we made a plugin for WordPress that allows you to manage these cloud of entities, push it to the knowledge graph on the internet, and then you can connect these entities with your content by using the schema.org vocabulary and the JSON LD format. And then Google comes on your website, crawls the page, it finds the words, the strings, but it also finds the things. And then I think the nice thing also that we did there, we wanted to go 5 stars right away. I mean, it's not like we didn't want to do like, type your words as structured data. We didn't want to make this hack. We actually created linked data 5 stars, which means that the knowledge graph has like unique IDs for your concepts, for your entities. It's a sort of Wikidata, Wikipedia, if you will, and you can actually give and connect unique IDs, and you can connect these entities to the linked data, to the Wikipedia and Wikidata, and this brings a huge value. And we saw that Google actually likes it. I mean, Jason, you're using it yourself, and you're actually showing myself the wonders of what we're doing that I could not even think of, because when Google understands, then Google gives the answers and gives these beautiful representations of the structured data right on the SERP, and you get like a huge real estate on the SERP, and this brings traffic and value.
Which is the phenomenal foundation of all of this. It's understanding rather than strings of characters. And I actually literally this morning found something new, is that if you type into Google who voiced Boo-Wah, who is the blue dog Irish cartoon, is that Google can now give you not only a direct answer but also a feature snippet, and it shows my knowledge panel. So the association for Google in its brain between Boo-Wah and myself is that it knows that Boo-Wah is a character and that the person who played that character is me, and that is understanding. It is not keywords, because when you type in who voiced Boo-Wah, my name is not mentioned, and yet my knowledge panel appears. Sorry, Alex, I interrupted you.
Especially because this is a relationship between entities and the proprietor of entities, because you are entity, your music is another entity, you create the relationship. So Google understands this relationship, and when you ask the question, they understand your question, your search, and show all this relationship in these two entities. So maybe I show to you my little presentation, because we have some
you're right,
about
Alex.
that.
Let's move forward. Please share your screen. That idea of educating Google, which is the way I like to put it, is definitely important. Is that we can educate Google, and I've educated Google that I am Boo-Wah the blue dog, and I think it should be the other presentation, Anton.
Yeah, this is my screen.
So that Google knows that Boo the blue dog is actually Jason Barnard.
Yeah.
Now, Alex is going to explain to us the semantics applied in SEO. Off you go, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, because when I found Wordlift in the search on the web, so I start to think this is a actual real tool I need to do the semantic SEO job. So I start to make some tests, and I really like this phrase of David Armerland because they show us to SEO is not a difficult thing to understand. We talk about and make this connection in my mind, but it's challenging to implement. So Wordlift is a one tool to make this a big kind of little more easy to understand to implement this on projects. So in this moment, the semantic web is growing and start to make some value because David talk about the beginning of the web. In the beginning of the web semantic is still in development and still in development today. So for this, we need structured data, and Wordlift help us to create these on content, websites, blogs, and everything. So this relationship between semantic web, the structured data, and in SEO is a way, a path to do what you show to you in the other pages. So we start to think this research and semantic, we adapt to the web technologies to resolve one problem. The search engines like Google, Bing have a very difficult to understand our content because we people, we have this ability to understand some difference between context and meaning, and the machines don't have this ability, you know. So because that SEO needs to be semantic, because semantic is about meaning of not words, but context and entities, relationships and people, the things they did, the places we live, something like that. This is entities. So what I said, search engines like Google and Bing use these technologies for solve this problem. And we, our researchers and professionals, using this kind of universal markup language to make some sense of all this content we put online. So Wordlift help us to do that too. So how to make this work? How to use semantics in optimization today, right now? We have a lot of tools, or have a lot of techniques. I find Wordlift, and when I put Wordlift in a project, we have a marriage. You know, we have a lot of work, a year of work, but in the moment the Google algorithm understand our content and navigate from these links, internal links of Wordlift, help me to create, we have a pump in the results. So we create a knowledge graph using Wordlift in this project I showed to you. And when Google understand this content and crawl this graph, something happened, as I showed to you. I showed to you a project here in Brazil. It's a platform about videos related from Spiritism. Is a religion related website. And when I create this project with two methodologies, I create a controlled vocabulary, and interconnect some entities with DBpedia using Wordlift. So we create, we see when David show us the data studio, we create some types of entities, books, people, location, person, and connect these entities together to create this knowledge graph, especially for this domain of knowledge. This is a issue you have to pay a little attention here, because every project in Semantic Seo has to be connected to domain of knowledge and put this project to serve this domain of knowledge. If I create a website about cars, I need to understand this domain of knowledge related to vehicles, about cars. This is a complete different knowledge, domain of knowledge. Religions, we need different entities, different relations. Because of that, the semantic SEO is not like ordinary SEO, the old SEO, because we put a big volume of keywords and something happens or not. Here you need to create a structure, relationships, and understand the entities in your domain of knowledge, the domain of knowledge of your site. And doing that, we give to this website a very big result. So to put all in the same page, we create a controlled vocabulary. Vocabulary is a structure with a list of terms or entities and these definitions. So we need a people, and we have this name and the little summary of what is this people, or about a place, about a book, and we have this list. And using Wordlift, I transform this list and a list of entities, because I put the relationship, information about them, and create this database inside these websites who use WordPress too, and then create a knowledge graph relating to these entities with posts pages using the Wordlift system. So, and I started to work with this website in 2018, and for a year or so, we carry out some results. And you'll see, and on the screen, we have 7 times more users, 6 times more new, 7 times new users, 6 times more users. We increase revenue 3 times. We have a new user a year before with more 5 times. We have in 1 year of work, we have 7 times more new user, and another year more 5 times new users. So this traffic is going so big, and our host, we host videos in one host. They call for us and ask for the website go to another host, because it's a lot of traffic and the hosts don't serve more anymore. So we have to go to another host and put all the content there, because it's too much traffic for these guys. So we create this knowledge graph using Wordlift, and for one week to another, we see this pump in the traffic. It's only from the search. It's never used this in ads or social media here. It's only for the search. So what I talked about early, how to show these results from the people, the people of the site, from the people who look at the site, because we see we have these Google Analytics, and it only shows us for user, new user, time on page, and how entities, how to show how every entity make this result happen. So we try very hard to make these dashboard and results and never be able to do. So David has the resolution for this problem.
Brilliant, wonderful, Alex. Thank you so much. So, David, you're going to present us with the solution to this problem, which is really geeky. So, your garden of Google Data Studio filled with Google Analytics and Google Search Console is going to be flowering. So, please do present us your flowering garden.
Yeah. So, first of all, let me say that the work that Alex has been doing. I think all the people that are using Wordlift, I mean, they have such a complex job when you need to create this knowledge graph. It takes quite an effort because you really need to conceptualize what is the content that you're talking about. So I think that the work that we're doing here, there are several things that we will also do in the future to help more and more people in achieving that, making it as simple as possible. But the work that we're doing here, I think, helps exactly both in the creation of the knowledge graph, because you have a feedback about what are the how the entities relate with the content and with the traffic, and also, of course, in terms of KPIs, so that you can actually show what is the advantage of using entities and how they drive traffic to your site. So in this case, the first thing that we did, we built in our infrastructure a GraphQL endpoint. Now, I try not to be too much technical, but it's a way for us to query the knowledge graph in a very flexible way, right? So this can be used for almost anything. I can use the GraphQL endpoint to build widgets, but I can also use the GraphQL endpoint to create reports. And this is what we're doing. And then we created a connector that we published on Google that allows you to, the same way that you connect your site to the platform, then you can use the connector to extract the data out of the platform and put it into Data Studio. And Data Studio is a nice little feature, I think, which is the most interesting of all, is that you can create blends. That is, you can take more than one data source and then connect this data by using a field. And in this case, I'm going to show you how I'm using Data Studio to connect the knowledge graph and the Google Search Console data by using the URL field. So because entities are published on URLs on web pages, and because Google because the Google Search Console data has the landing page, which is the URL where you have the impressions and the traffic coming in on your site, then we can connect this information, and we can show how the entities relate to traffic and what are their KPIs. So what you're going to see here it starts from work that I did together with Alex, and then I spent, as I said, I nurtured it a little bit more, spent a little bit more time trying to make it nicer. I think there are still quite some things to do, and you can see here I've got my untitled page, which means I still want to put more things, and the more I talk with you and with people, and I share these, and people give me feedback, I think the more ideas we will have to make it even better. And the general idea afterwards is that this is a template, so that if you have Wordlift, you just come on Google Data Studio, you choose Wordlift, and you put your account, and boom, you have the initial report ready-made for you. Hopefully, this is where we're going. But now let's see what we've done so far. So the first page here in Data Studio. So I mean, I give for granted that people know more or less what Data Studio is. But I mean, if we want to really boil it down, it's like a report. It's literally like a report where you draw tables and graphs and numbers, so you can have KPIs visible at any time, and you can see how you're performing, how your work is performing against the traffic. So the first page here that we created is the knowledge graph page, because one interesting thing is that you can actually have an idea about your knowledge graph. People that create the knowledge graph, most of the times they see the single entities, they see the single work that they do, but they do not see the big picture. So what we're doing here, we're showing a little bit of the big picture. So for example, this is the knowledge graph for the website, and we always try to put here the same filters. I mean, like you can filter the schema.org types that you want to focus your report on, and I will show you a little bit in a GIF how we can filter this stuff. You can also choose the dates for the traffic data coming from a GSC, but mostly what we see here is the list of entities that are in the website. So we have about 720 entities, and you can scroll them through. So you can have you can see all the name and the type of entity. So people that work with the semantic SEO, they already know about the person type, the thing type, and these are the names. And this is the overview of the pages on the website. In this case, by page we mean the landing pages coming from GSC. So these are the pages that received impressions on Google, right? So unique count, of course. And this is the number of entities in the knowledge graph. And this is another important piece of information, because what we do, we allow editors and publishers to connect the web pages with entities, so that if on a web page you're talking about concept A, B, and C, then you can see this page is about A and is also mentioning B and C. And so this is a connection. So the more the connection you create, the more the knowledge graph is alive. And the nice thing is also that by using these connections, we can relate content. But that's another story. The important thing here is that we can see is that we have a little bit more than 700 entities, and almost 600 entities are connected to the rest of the content. So it's a very good job, Alex. And then the other thing that we got here is the breakdown by type. So you have an idea here of the entity types that you're using and their distribution. Because we connect with the linked data and concepts, you see often in our knowledge graphs the entity type thing. Maybe people that use the structured data by typing it manually, maybe people don't use thing, they're used to use person, organization, place, event. I think it's very relevant when you have concepts that maybe don't fall in a specific or in a precise type or one of these well-known types, right? So you can use thing. For example, if you're referring to a concept, then you can use thing. We can see, for example, here that cardiopatia is a thing, or caridade is a thing. So I think caridade is charity, right? So maybe it doesn't fall in a schema.org type, but it's yet a thing. So it's something that actually Google can recognize. So in this specific site, we can see that most of the more than half of the entities are things. Then we have lots of persons, then creative works, organizations, and so forth. So this is the first page. I have an idea about the type.
David,
yeah,
this breakdown by type is very important to understand if the job has well made. Because when I see this picture of this pizza data and look this relation person with things with organization, I see the spread of the entities is well made, you know. So this, for me, who do the job, is very useful to see these kind of results.
That's great to hear. because it's always very difficult for me when I start doing these things. I always lose a little bit track of my of the target, and this is very good for me. I love it when I can spend time with Alex and other people, and we can work together so that I'm sure that I'm doing something that helps them. That's the best for me. So let's see the next screen.
Could you just really quickly answer this question? Are those
Yeah.
entities already defined by you, or were they generated automatically?
Oh,
I think that's a huge question that a lot of people ask with Wordlift.
yeah, the both. In this project, I create from the content. The content is made, is created, and I look the content and create the entities using Wordlift from this content. In the other project, I do in the other way. I create the taxonomy, the structure, and put this structure in the vocabulary. So I start to look in the contents this taxonomy. I think the second way of doing is better because I make myself understand the domain of knowledge and create this taxonomy. And when I look at the content, I be able to see if my content fits in this taxonomy. If don't fit, maybe this content is not for our site because this out of this domain of knowledge.
Brilliant, wonderful. And right, brilliant. Really quickly, I'm just going to put that up. We're not going to answer it now, but please do remind me to come back to it. I think that's a really important question. And here's Jeannie Hill saying that she loves the way of looking at the way these entities are connected. So please carry on, David.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next screen, it's a traffic overview. So you can see also here, Alex, I made some improvements. So what we have here is the typical KPIs from a GSC. So we have the impressions, the clicks, the CTR, and the average position. I can always filter. And in this case, the report is preset to the last 7 days. Of course, we take a buffer because people that use GSC, they know that the really last days are not there. So it's like 3 days in the past and then 1 week. And what we show here is the types that are in the knowledge graph and their traffic data. You can see, Jason, what I was saying before, that it always take a little bit time for GSC, for the data studio to elaborate and process the data. So you always need to be a little bit patient.
Right, and here are we looking at the impressions and clicks and the click-through rate for the entity pages that Wordlift creates, or for all pages that include that entity?
For all pages that include that entity.
Brilliant.
And I think this is quite an interesting report, because what we can see here is that, for example, while we have a high number of impressions for things, for example, and we have a high number of clicks, but we can also see a different KPI, which is the CTR, for example, and we can see for the creative work has a very high CTR. On another website, we saw, for example, that event has a very low, very high average position, which I mean is that it's very late in the SERP, yet has a very high CTR. So this gives quite an idea about the entity types that you should use or you should promote more in the content.
Yeah, and this and this project is very interesting to see these results, because I start to see a relationship between person type and the creative work type. Because this relation, because in this project we have people who write books. So the creative work is a book, and person who writes the book. So this relation in the search, maybe the Google make this connection, and when I create a search about the book, they show me the writer of this book too. So they two go together and create sometimes this knowledge panel. We'll see, and you ask about yourself.
So we can also experiment here with the product markup and the to see whether it gives even more of a boost.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show you here that, well, I mean, it's nothing, just you can actually filter the report so that you see less lines and you can focus, for example, in this case, as Alex said, on the creative work and person. So that's quite interesting, huh?
It's very good, very good.
Yeah.
What does strike me is how impatient we become. Is, as you said, David, it takes a little bit of time, and we're suddenly incredibly impatient and annoyed at how slow it all is. But we fail to remember quite how difficult this would be, or impossible even, to do it by hand.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely.
There's lots of data. I mean, it's also like a tool that you can use for free. So I think we can
Yeah.
for more.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, so I really just kind of meant from a general perspective with data is that we're getting spoiled. We're like spoiled children. We expect the data just to appear immediately. And that was what, 15, 20 seconds? For the amount of data and the amount of information, the amount of insights it's giving us, that's a very small wait, and it's a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would like to stop being a spoiled child. Please continue, David.
Yeah, sure. It's good to be spoiled. Now, this is the traffic by entity. And this is new, Alex. This is, I hope you like this, this page. Because here I took inspiration from the Google Search Console report, where they have this landing page table with impressions, clicks, and CTR, and so forth. So what I did here, I created this table that shows you the entities in relation to the traffic KPIs. So you can see the impressions, the clicks, the CTR, and the average position. Of course, you can always, these graphs are all interactive, so you can always click and sort them differently. But I think, like we were saying also last day, that it really makes sense. It's really encouraging and satisfying to see that the first entity here, okay, or Espiritismo, it's like, in fact, it's the one that it's attracting the more impressions and the more clicks, because it's actually the main concept of the website, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this also is useful in terms of reporting, but I think also in terms of further growing the knowledge graph. I also put here two KPIs, two separate boxes or card. I don't know how Google calls them. Cards with the KPIs for the website, and we can see here, like this is in the last week, and we can see here the number of impressions for pages that have been lifted. These pages where we actually pushed semantic entities, and here we can see the rest of the impressions for the pages where we didn't put a lift. Okay. Of course, there is the number of pages where you usually have a lift is smaller than the number of pages where you don't have a lift. So the most important thing here to see, I think it's the CTR or the number of clicks. I think these are data that are quite relevant.
Dave, let me talk about one thing. We stopped to make any optimization of this site on this site maybe 2 years ago. We don't do anything, and these results is still growing up.
Yeah.
This is a very good, because when you do this in the old SEO with keywords, when you stop to do your job, the traffic go down. And when create this relationship, this graph, the results is still growing up day by day, week by week. It's very
Right,
good.
and that's a lot to do with Google's improved understanding, because if you've set up your knowledge graph within your own website, Google's still catching up, and the more it understands, the more it realizes exactly what it is you're trying to communicate to it. And it really is this child trying to keep up with you educating it. And as it catches up with you, it pulls that understanding through in terms of impressions and clicks, which is absolutely brilliant. And I think, from my own perspective, I think we imagine Google is maybe smarter than it really is, and that it's up to us to build that education and pull this child forwards with us. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to reverse engineer the algorithm.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't understand how Google thinks. And the other nice thing here is like we saw before, that you can actually filter the types. So if you want to have the data focus, for example, as we said before, on creative work and person, you can actually do that, and then we would see. It could be quite interesting to see, for example, how the impressions and clicks are changing in relation to these two entity types. This, of course, doesn't change because this is only related to the pages without entities. So we have.
Yeah. I need
So
I need to do some work in that.
Yeah. So something is going down for but I think this is quite interesting, because we can see that something is going down in terms of impressions and clicks for creative work and person, which means, I reiterate, I think we should actually, because you're doing books, we can use some more specific markup and also use product probably.
Yeah.
But which means, because we saw that overall there was some traffic actually going up, so maybe it's related to things.
Yeah.
In fact, we can see actually things are generating lots of traffics, and look at the push of clicks that they are doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, Google's looking at the concepts and really beginning to understand them, which comes back to topical authority, which we were talking about last month.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So now I think it would be interesting, actually. So as I said, I will spend more time with this little creature, but I think it would be interesting to find a way to put also the difference in this table, so that we could actually see a breakdown of what is actually bringing more impressions and especially more clicks. So probably that would be quite interesting to see. Probably we can already see something here in terms of the number of clicks. So I don't know if this makes sense in respect to what is the general talk in Brazil. These are the impressions, like people are looking for the sermão da montanha. Maybe it's something seasonal. I don't know. I have no idea what the
I don't know.
Okay.
Because this change very rapidly, so I.
Yeah.
Well, the third one looks like spiritualism to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly
being
that.
a Portuguese speaker, of course.
Yeah. And this is what is the gym?
No, this is a show. What they did here is a webinar from one person only.
Right.
We need, for example, to remove the nulls. Otherwise, we have data that it's not relevant here. So there's still some.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering something, David, earlier on when you were talking, is that you're using thing for concept. Why isn't there a schema.org type concept? Wouldn't that be really
cool? I don't know.
You sound so tired. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I think schema.org comes from a very concrete background, right? It comes from the good relations and the e-commerce. And I think the idea is that you cannot really sell concepts at the moment. So I think that's the reason that the more conceptual things are not actually available there. But you know what, schema.org is a open source. I mean, anyone can actually contribute to it. So if we really want to create some concept type, we could do it. But right now, I think, for example, most of the efforts have gone in tourism before the pandemic, or in medical terms before and with the pandemic. So it's really schema.org is like ever evolving, and anyone can actually contribute and push these concepts. for us, I think anyway, think is at the root of everything, and so I think it's still fine for us to define it that way. The most important thing is of course that Google understands it and that we link it to the actual concept that's defined in Wikipedia and Wikidata.
Right. Okay.
But this is also interesting here. For example, also the CTR is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, from that perspective, when you're using thing, you can actually use additional type, and then point to the product ontology page, which is the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think it's really at the base of it. So I mean, like it's a hierarchical structure, right? So if you use another type, you can also skip thing, but we can also assign more than one type to the same entity if that type has more than a meaning, more than a meaning. Sometimes we do that, like when you have a product that can be physical or virtual as a service or as something else, or sometimes we do that if we want to use a specific type to describe that entity, but you also use a little bit more generic type so that Google can actually display a rich snippet for it. So you can actually assign more than a type. Of course, if you assign a more specific type, you don't need to use thing, because thing it's really at the root of the hierarchy, right? So if we go on schema.org and we see the hierarchy, we can see that thing as the base, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Is that taxonomy? Things is the schema.
Yeah.
The broader schema.
Yeah. I mean, once you start digging into that, then you start coming up with gazillions of ideas. And just really quickly, David, the difference between the ready ones and the bluey ones.
This and this?
No.
No, in the schema.
Just really quickly.
No, I think it's just a matter of the these are the this is proposed. Like
so the blue ones are proposed, like, and the red ones
extensions are extensions that have been proposed to be added to schema.org, so you can start using them, but they are not yet officially into schema.org.
Right, and there isn't necessarily a mapping between what's on schema.org and what Google understands.
Well, Google says use any schema type, even if we don't officially support it. It may be that we actually do something with it, or we will do something with it. So, according to Google, you should use any type that matches your content.
Brilliant. In that case, we have this question from Jeannie. How do you prioritize which schema markup type to use when multiple choices appear valid, and when do you use thing for gaps?
Well, it's because at the end of the day we want to get traffic, right? So we want to, first of all, what I usually do, I go on the search gallery anyway and see what Google expects to generate a rich snippet or something like that. So I usually try to use a type that Google can support, and eventually I add a more specific type. So first of all, I would target anyway the type that Google would support.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant, wonderful. Have you finished your presentation, or?
I have this Untitled page that I'm still working on, because one thing that for sure we need to add here is, for example, it's like the work that we do with our add-on for Google Sheets, right? We want to understand what's the connection between the keywords that people type into Google and the entities that relate to those keywords. So I call them the keywords that support these entities. And so this is a first small seed of a table that connects these queries with the entities. But then I have to look into making it a little bit more easy to understand, more immediate to grasp, right? Because like this is too much data, of course. So, but I want to show something that shows you what are the queries that are bringing more traffic and how they're connected to the entities or something like this. I think I will need to talk with Alex a little bit more about this, and with the team at Wordlift, to see how we can display something that really gives you a value while you analyze this report. So you can really make this connection about strings and things.
Okay,
Right,
let's
and
do
there's
that.
a question. Sorry, you said strings, not things. You've got two Geraldo Dutra Dias. Is that
Yeah.
two different people with two different queries, or is it the same
No,
person? Google
it's
is
the same. It's the same person.
Yeah.
The same person.
I was I was thinking, wow, Google's managed to figure out the difference between these two different people with the same name.
But this is it's the default of this table that I did. Exactly, this is exactly the point, right? Because this table is showing you the single queries first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally, I mean, this should be at the moment. This should be the first column, right? It's a list of queries, and then the entities connected to these queries. So because people, they can type it with or without the accent, then Google will show you both the queries, and then what is good to see is that they connect to the same entity.
The same entity. Yeah.
Oh, which is brilliant. I mean, that ambiguity of people's names is a phenomenal problem for Google.
Yeah.
And something that
Tell
we
me about
really
it.
need to help it with. So absolutely perfect, David. Thank you so much. We're back now to the final 3 or 4 minutes, and I really wanted to come back to this question. How do we align on the most important concepts in an organization when we start from scratch? I think that's a phenomenally important question, because where to start is the biggest problem. Where do I focus first? Because I want to do everything, but I can't.
Yeah.
Where do I focus? Alex, you've got experience with this.
Yeah. I create a methodology to do that, and I write a book about it. I use the tools of information science, especially taxonomy and ontologies, for do that. So I investigate the domain of knowledge and understand how this website of this project fits in this domain. Then I create this list of concepts and people, the relationships, and make this little taxonomy, put this on the website in form of structure of menus, of strategy for create content. Maybe this one category have another subcategories, and this big category we create a content or a page, and this make me think exactly how to fit my project in this domain of knowledge, and use Wordlift to make this connection. So go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was about to say, I was just thinking about that. My immediate reply would be, search your own brand name, look at the people also ask, start there, keep clicking on the results, and you will gradually fill out from what Google thinks is most important around your brand, both in terms of questions people are asking about your brand, but also the topicality of your brand, and you can work out from there. So I would prioritize using the brand search, but that's because I'm totally biased. David, a really quick double-part question is, how is the Semantic Seo implemented? It is in the HTML code, and then do we need a tool like Wordlift, or can we do without it?
So absolutely, it's implemented in the HTML code. It's like a small markup that only the Google and search engines will see. I would say, though, that there is something else that we do, which is very similar to what DBpedia and Wikidata do. That is, they also publish the structured data with a permanent ID and in different formats. And this is useful if we want to take it to the next step, where we connect this data with other data. We can actually create something like a mesh of data. But this is for the next time. So the simple answer is yes, it goes inside the HTML code as a snippet of code that only the search engine see. As for the tools, of course, I'm biased.
Right.
I mean, if you use Wordlift, the nicest thing is that we use machine learning and artificial intelligence. And as Alex was saying before, we help you create the knowledge graph, because we analyze the content that you write, and we start proposing entities and concepts coming from the linked data. This is from Wikipedia and Wikidata. But of course, there are several tools that eventually allow you to do that.
Right, which actually partially answers the question from Alessandro Fratus, which is how hard is it to establish these entity knowledge graphs
no
on a
problem.
website?
Is no problem. I do this on my regular work. Is not a problem. It's
Right.
the same. It's more time, but not
Right,
more
well,
than.
which is going to be true of any kind of website. If you've got a lot of content, it's going to take you a lot of time to sort it all out, to categorize it, to add the entities to it. And we're pretty much out of time. I wanted to end with this because Teodora, as always, comes up with a delightful comment. SEO equals smart, elegant overthinking. Thanks for the awesome answers. And it's cool that SEO is now the smart way of connecting things, people, and products. I don't know how you do it, Teodora, but you always come up with the final word in these wonderful webinars. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you very much.
That was absolutely awesome. I loved every minute of it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Please do come back next month when we'll have another Wordlift monthly roundtable on an equally geeky topic to do with semantic SEO. Have you got any closing words really quickly, David?
No, just because I see that people are asking where they can get the Google Data Studio connector is just if you go on Data Studio and you create a report, then you can just add a data source, type Wordlift, and then it will show in the list of connectors. So it's there. It's published in Data Studio already.
It's lucky somebody asked the really obvious question that I had totally forgotten.
That's, you see.
Alex, any last words before we go?
No, only thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Anton, behind the scenes. Thank you, Wordlift. That was absolutely brilliant. See you all next time in a month's time for another Wordlift monthly roundtable.
Thank you, guys.
Kalicube. It's all about your brand SERP.